Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Can I welcome you here today to this special Cabinet meeting? And can I welcome anybody at home who's watching today? Three important items on the agenda, but before we get there, there are some apologies for absence today. Obviously, this is a special meeting. We have a couple of people on holiday and a couple of people on other business. So there are apologies from Councillor Hackett-Payne, Councillor Brian Jones, Councillor Giles Howard and Councillor Jeff Burrows, and possibly from Councillor Howarth. Not sure. However, right, can I just ask my colleagues to introduce themselves quickly? Phil?
I'm Phil Murphy, Cabinet Member for Resources.
Bob Greenland, responsible for Innovation, Enterprise and Leisure.
Phil Hobson, responsible for Community Development.
And I'm Peter Fox, Leader of the Council, and a Leader of Opposition.
Dimitri Petruni, Leader of the Labour Group.
Welcome, Dimitri. And we're joined with several other members today and officers. Officers, obviously, you'll be introduced as you enter the discussion. So thank you very much for attendance. Okay, we'll move into declarations of interest. Are there any declarations here? Any member actually who's here? If you feel you have one, can you tell us now, or write one of the usual performers? Well, and write one of the usual performers, please. Any declarations? No? Okay, fine. Okay, we've gone to item 3, consideration reports from select committees. There are none forward, and that takes us into the substantive agenda items in 4. And the first one of these is the funding for children's service budget investment in 2015-16. And the purpose of this is to identify those one-off savings in 2015-16 to fund the investment in children's services approved at the last Cabinet. Many of you were here and you would have known why this report is with us. In key issues there, you can see that at that meeting approval was given to increase the budget for children's services in 2015-16 by some £422,000. An agreement was given for a further report to be presented so that the funding of the agreed investment could be approved, and hence we have this here today. The full investment will be included in the medium-term financial plan for 16-17. However, in order to make progress this year, one-off savings need to be identified to fund the budget requirements. You will notice that there is some changes in the timing of some of the positions to be established, which were originally suggested to be put in place in August, but now will happen in September. That reduces the requirement from £422,000 to £400,000. The senior leadership team have put a range of savings together, which we will see at Appendix 1 on page 17. And again, the reason, as you see there, is to establish that one-off funding for investment in children's services. So if we go to the appendix on page 17, you can see the table there and the description from each of the service areas, directorates within the council, and how they have collectively brought forward some savings which amount to the 400,000 required. I'm not going to go through every individual one of these. Obviously, we can clearly answer questions on these if they arise, but you can see there are contributions from all areas within the council to fund this shortfall for this first year. And basically, members, that is the report before us. Perhaps before I invite you in, I can invite either Kelly or Mark, if they wish, to contribute. Anything you'd like to say around this? Pretty self-explanatory. I do thank officers for coming forward with these areas. We hope there isn't any detrimental effect to those services. I see the narrative you've written there, which gives me some reassurance around each one of these. So I'm personally comfortable with that. Cabinet members, anybody? Yeah, Councillor Bob Greenland.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Finding £400,000 out of such a tight budget situation is not easy, and it doesn't come without pain. And if you look through the areas where the savings are going to be made, you can understand that it is going to have an effect on us. So, for instance, the delay in undertaking maintenance schemes. If they're not undertaken now, they've got to be undertaken later, and the longer you leave them, the more expensive they'll become. If you look at delaying the appointment of a replacement officer, that comes with a cost as well. It puts much more pressure on the existing officers that are having to do without their colleague. So it is absolutely essential that we've found this. There's absolutely no doubt about that. But there is a cost to it, and it is good that officers have identified it at what will be the least possible effect on services. But we are in such a tight position that when we have to find these sums, they don't come easily.
Thank you. Colleagues, anybody further? Okay. Councillor Bertuni.
Yeah, totally support this and conveying where you've had to make savings. Just a quick query on one of them, individual electoral registration funding. Are we allowed to use that funding for supplying other services? And are we sure we don't need it this year, considering we have Welsh Assembly elections coming up?
Somebody got a view on that? Tracy?
Tracy Harry, Head of Democracy and Regulatory Services. I can confirm we don't need to repay the money to the Home Office, and we don't need the money in this year to support elections, so we can use the money.
Thank you, Tracy, for that. Councillor Hobson.
Yeah, just to add, it's actually not just to support elections, it's also to help with individual registration, which has now occurred, which was a major exercise that went out with very little of a hitch in Monmouthshire. But of course, it may well be called upon when individual registration may cause future problems in the next year or so. So that's the reason for it.
Okay, many thanks for that. Right, I'll take us back to the recommendations. And the recommendation then is to approve the release of the one-off savings of £400,000 as identified in that Appendix 1, noting the impact on the service areas. Are all in favour of that? Thank you very much. Okay, move us on to item 2, and this is the effectiveness of council services, and it's a quarter 4 update to provide us with an update of how the authority has performed against the national performance indicators for 14 to 15, and the latest refresh on the cabinet dashboard, which I know members are looking at, and indeed I think opposition members are tailoring for their needs, which is great, and that's what we want to use the dashboard on the hub for that. The recommendations are for Cabinet to use this report to help our continuous monitoring and evaluation of the effectiveness of our services and the extent to which they are contributing to the Council's priorities of education, supporting the vulnerable, promoting enterprise and job creation, and maintaining that locally accessible service provision. And that also Cabinet can approve the targets for measures in the National Performance Framework, as also shown in Appendix 1. I think you'll see on 3.1 there and the chart below that it is encouraging, as the report says, that the measures in the National Performance Framework do show positive improvement trajectory for the third consecutive year, with 84% of the indicators improving over the past 12 months. However, I don't like seeing red columns, I don't like seeing red bits in reports, and we will constantly be working on those to improve those those indicators as well. So that chart there on 3.1 gives a clear indication of what's rising and what is falling. We have tackled some of the significant areas of underperformance, and in many cases are now focused on the marginal gains, but we will continue to push more on our comparable measures of performance in the upper quartile. Again, you're reflecting that there are areas we still need to work on. We can never take our foot off the pedal in driving improvement in all areas. As we mentioned earlier, the hub is a vital tool for members to monitor progress against these, and I know you are, and others are, and it's something we need to get more and more used to using. 3.4, the hub also summarises that data from external sources, and we are, well, actually the National Survey for Wales, we were expecting to be released mid-June. It came in this morning, but I don't think we had a chance to actually work through it yet, but so I haven't got an update at this point, but I can perhaps hand to officers in a moment. But I know they've still got some work to do to try and work it out. In 3.5, I think that box there clarifies the general trajectory over the last 3 years of improvement in trend of improvement in those various quartiles. But again, I don't like talking too much in that regard because I'm conscious there are areas that still need further improvement and don't want to take our eye off the ball in that regard. And there, down below that, you will see the various trends captured in the pie charts, and then there's a further breakdown in the Appendix 1 of those specific indicators and how we are moving through those. So I'm going to leave that there and perhaps hand over to Will or Matt. Is there either of you wish to add anything at this point? No? Matt, are you okay? Right. Okay, so colleagues, there we have the information before us. Anything you wish to add at this point? Yep, Phil.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I think it's just to point out that whereas these results are very encouraging and we continue to do everything we can, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that with continuing budgetary restraints, despite all our efforts, it's going to get harder and harder to achieve.
Oh, no, you said it. Okay, Councillor Petrini.
Yes, focusing on the areas to improve, particularly on page 9, and all the indicators relating to looked after children in terms of contact with authority, in terms of accommodation, in terms of jobs, training. We've all declined, and we're at the bottom of the quartile for each of those areas. Why are we performing so badly on looked after children?
Yes, thank you. And apologies, Simon is unable to be here today. Around that particular indicator, there's one indicator relating to children formerly looked after on their 19th birthdays. Within Monmouthshire, we've got relatively small numbers that fall within that cohort. So the first two of those, the difference between where we're at and 100% is the instance of a single child. Obviously, the difficulty with that, it's quite difficult to talk about the details behind an individual child without sort of within the context of a public meeting. But clearly, what we have done is set targets to push that towards 100% in the coming year. So what I'm looking at, SCC 033D, percentage of formerly looked after children who the authorities in contact with. And then...
The one, my particular concern is education, training and employment. That was the biggest drop, and I understand it's more than one child.
Yes, absolutely. So it's sort of all part of the same indicator. So there are three aspects to it. One, that we're in contact with these children on their 19th birthday. Secondly, that they're in suitable accommodation. And then thirdly, that they're in education, training or employment at the age of 19. Clearly, it's children who had a very difficult start in life. Nonetheless, as an authority, we have a great responsibility to them as people who've been the corporate parent. And accordingly, one of the things which Council have prioritised in the improvement plan agreed on the 23rd of April was work to take forward work opportunities and work placements for children in the looked after system. So yes, it is an area of underperformance. The numbers are small, but clearly the numbers are significant because each one of those is an individual with a life who is not able to maximise their potential. So the proposals to take this forward are set out in the improvement plan, and that's been agreed by Council, and Tracy will be reporting back on that through the course of the year.
Thank you, Matt, and thank you for raising the question, Dimitri. You're absolutely right. One child is important. Doesn't matter what the stats. If it says that young person isn't getting what it should have, we need to focus hard on that, because that one child's got only one opportunity. So, thank you for that. Okay, the recommendation, and thank you for the work pulling that together. And we'll wait some more feedback on the national survey in due course. Can I then take us back to those recommendations which I shared earlier? I won't read those out again, but the recommendations are in 2.1 and 2.2. All in favour of that? Thank you very much. On to the last item. This is about a city deal for South East Wales, and this is a report that 10 South East Wales authorities are taking through their cabinets all around the same time. There is a collective will across South East Wales to move forward into the early stages of progress in preparing for a city deal proposal. Some background here. This report is a similar report that is going to all councils, or has been to some already across Wales, and it does give a lot of very, very important information and background. So forgive me if I actually draw to the report and actually try to take some of the key information out of here so you can actually get a flavour of it. And I'm pleased Kelly is here, who has a deep knowledge of this as well, and we'll be able to flesh further questions out on this, I know. The city deal process is something which happened in 2011. It started as part of the UK's broader devolution and growth agenda, and it was focused around core cities within in England, and it was there to empower localities to drive economic growth by providing those additional freedoms and resources that they would require to drive that change. But in return, the government has sought new local government arrangements which have taken a variety of forms, including the combined authorities, the city mayors, and other forms of local government-led partnerships. That resonates quite well with what we've been talking about in Monmouthshire, about doing things different, which is that's quite a contradiction to the news that we've heard today, which is quite disappointing, I think, for many people in Wales. However, the City Deal programme has really added tremendous value to key areas of the UK, and what's helpful is now that the Westminster government want to help roll this out into the rest of the UK. We've already seen Glasgow have a city deal. We know that Edinburgh are looking to have one, and we're pleased that our Prime Minister and our Secretary of State have shown commitment to work with Wales as well on a city deal, and the opportunities that could release for the whole of the region are absolutely fantastic if we can pull that together. You know, the key important aims of the City Deal programme are there highlighted in 3.2. You know, to take charge and responsibility of decisions that affect their area, do what they think to best to help businesses grow, to create economic growth, and decide how public money should be spent. Real bespoke packages for each area to enable, you know, real things to happen there so much faster than ever could happen in a normal way of doing. 3.3, a common theme of these larger deals is this payment by results approach. by results approach is in effect a new form of tax increment finance, and that is based on retaining a share of the business rates uplift, which is typically around 2% of the GVA, and that's raised for infrastructure investment. And the payment by results approach provides access to a share of that receipt from the GVA, resulting from infrastructure investment, which typically equates to circa 40%. Now, I'm sure that was very confusing, but basically, if the city deal, the programmes which come forward, they can generate increased income above and beyond what was expected by the Treasury, we get to keep some of that money to help fund the carrying costs of taking this deal forward. So this actually adds real value, jobs, economic growth, opportunity to the areas, the constituent parts of the city deal region. This is a deal for not just Cardiff, this is a city region deal, a deal for all 10 authorities. Hopefully all 10 authorities are going to come to hopefully a similar conclusion that I hope we will this afternoon. So to move forward, we need to create the right deal, the business case, and there is a need for a fund to be put in place to actually start some of that work. And we believe among the 10 authorities that we need a fund of some £500,000 to take forward that initial stage. That to be funded pro rata to each authority. We know Cardiff are already contributing £120,000 toward that 500,000, and the rest of the 9 authorities will share the remaining 380,000, and our share of that, which we're being asked to do today, is to contribute £30,300 to that priority investment fund. And then that's to develop and take this whole programme forward to a stage, hopefully, which is accepted as the basis of a sound deal. Clearly, if that isn't the case, there's a risk to that money. Wherever there is a deal, there is a risk. We recognise that, but this is really worth playing for, in my eyes anyway, and the other leaders of the 10 authorities. I'm going to leave it there. There's so much stuff in here we could talk about, but Kelly, would you like to reflect further?
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just coming back to the recommendations, really, I think what is being proposed today is that we release a relatively small amount of money, I think in the grand scheme of what has just been described, to make sure that we're part of the early developmental work, which is going to be so key to taking this proposal forward. And that piece of work is quite technical by its nature, because it has to rank the potential of the investments that we may put forward and decipher what kind of returns they are capable of delivering. And the reason why I think we really have to be in on this at the very earliest of stages is because, I personally believe this could be a real game changer for us. I think it's about a commitment to an outcome rather than a process or a project or a programme, which is quite unusual. It's quite a different way of working. It's obviously a way of working that we would support. But there's going to be a lot of discipline required, I think, around prioritising, ensuring that we have a shared purpose, that we can commit to collective decision making too. So it's not about a business as usual approach, as you've outlined, Leader. This is about growth that's over and above that which was already planned for the region. So it's significant levels of growth. We're talking about a 5% increase in GVA, which, again, it's pretty important, isn't it? And I think the other city deals that have gone forward typically peg that between about 4 and 7%. So significant growth is what we're talking about. I think some of the problems that we acknowledge that we face in South Wales are not going to be addressed through tweaking, through minor kind of interventions in our economy. We know, don't we, that South Wales is one of the most major and long-term recipients of state aid. We have a major call on regeneration monies, on European monies. So we have to do something drastic and radical, I think, to rebalance that situation. I think one of the really encouraging things for me, because if anyone asks what's Monmouthshire going to get out of this, when you look in the paperwork and you look at the definition of infrastructure, we're not just talking about big heavy end infrastructure like housing, big physical regeneration projects and transport. We're actually playing to some of Monmouthshire's strengths here around digital infrastructure, around culture, around tourism, around the natural environment. So I think, you know, this could be fantastic for the region, but I also think it would be great for Monmouthshire.
Thank you, Kelly, and I'm glad you mentioned about, you know, what Monmouthshire get out of this, because for a successful deal, it has to show that each constituent part gets a real benefit out of this, and that's highlighted in 411 there. You'll see that there. So, colleagues, can I invite you to welcome this?
I guess that next week's front page headlines on the local papers are not going to be about this. They'll be about something else that's doing the rounds at the moment. But it should be about this, because this is a fantastic opportunity for Monmouthshire and for the region. And we have got to grasp it. If we want this county and this region to improve, we have got to take the opportunities of deals like this, and we have got to show central government that we are prepared to work together, and we are prepared to combine in order to bring these advantages and the further development of economic prosperity to our areas. I thoroughly support this report, and Leader, I would thank you personally for the work that you've done within the region in taking this and leading this forward.
Thank you for that, Bob. I am passionate about the opportunities for the region, be it as a Cardiff capital region, but also from a city deal perspective. You know, that is really important, and that's why probably some of you may have heard me on the radio this morning, and you'll see me in the press quite concerned about the emerging map we've seen today, which basically goes back to the future and goes back to what we used to have, and talks about, you know, huge, large authorities. We'd be part of a 600,000 population county. You know, what does that do? You know, where's the focus going to be? You know, will we lose sight of this really important regional debate about driving economic growth and opportunities for all across Wales, or will we become insular as we look to create these new structures which are several years off? And we mustn't get, you know, the opportunity today to send a message out to everyone who works for us that don't worry about this yet. It's a long, long way off. We need to deal around the big issues we have at the moment, and this is nothing but a big distraction at the moment from a really important journey that we're on, not just delivering local services with less resources, but that wider regional agenda as well. So it'll be an interesting few months of debate, I'm sure, around all of this. But we welcome this report, as with other authorities, and I know are doing at the moment. Colleagues, anybody else want? Phil?
First of all, I mean, I'd like to say from what is the things that we can see and touch from Monmouthshire. What's the advantage here? And with your your involvement and the pressure that you've been able to bring to bear on the capital city region leader, is you've managed to get Monmouthshire on the metro map, and that's been really, really useful because we had been left off. Now, what's quite clear is now is the time to actually sign into this, and I support this fully, because we've been through quite a terrible time of it since 2008, and what's quite clear is that national government and big institutions cannot deliver, or failing to deliver, economic growth in a sustainable manner, and it has to be done locally and as grassroots as possible, and city regions are where it's going to be. So it's timely and it's right. What we're seeing with the city deal for Manchester is pretty remarkable, the amount of devolution that has happened. I do have two criticisms, though. One of them is this, that Manchester is having healthcare devolved and is going to merge healthcare and social care together as one complete package, which it should be. It should be a well-being service, not split into two. I hope that although we've had devolution to Cardiff Bay, it doesn't stop at Cardiff Bay, and although healthcare is in Wales the responsibility of the Welsh Assembly Government, I hope that they see a way that our city region can have the same standing as that of Manchester. That would be right and it would be proper. The second one is on sustainable development. My fear is that we talk about economic growth, and we can, with economic growth, the tendency is that it will produce more greenhouse emissions, more energy usage, more damage. I just hope the emergent thinking, and I know that you will push this from Monmouthshire's point of view, Leader, is that you can decouple economic growth from damaging the planet. And we have that through the Future Generations, or Wellbeing of Future Generations bill. So everything's sort of coming together, and I think Monmouthshire can lead on this, clearly, and I fully support this, Leader. Thank you for your work so far.
Well, thank you very much for those kind words. Okay, Dimitri.
Thank you. I thought the Cabinet were going to tell you, Peter, thank you for the work you've done to save the world as well at one stage there. I think on the rail, on the metro, I distinctly remember huge work done from outside bodies, not only Peter Fox, Rail Action Group, and a lot of backbench councillors. So I think it's a bit unfair just to give praise to one person, given a lot of legwork has been done by people not in prominent positions. On this report specifically, I have a few questions. I might have missed it. Is there a timetable to when this sort of we get sort of a flavour of the technical information and what is derived from this work? Also, I'm looking at this, and the investment seems to be based on transport infrastructure or infrastructure around transport. That would make me think of or worry for the north of the county, because all the transport infrastructure is in the south. Are we just going to start improving major infrastructure in the south and sort of neglect the north? I'm not saying that's what we aim to do, but can we make sure we guard against that? And in relation to transport infrastructure more generally, are we talking about investments only in new infrastructure rather than present transport infrastructure?
Thank you for that, and your opening comments. Absolutely agree. You know, my role on the City Regions Board is just to act as one of the City Region Board members. I don't do anything other than other members. The work on bringing the metro into the south of the county, I give absolute credit to the people who have worked hard in that community to bring that forward, and I welcome that, and so thank you for that. And then Kelly may want to reflect on some of this. It's a little bit early to actually define exactly what might happen in a deal. Deals are clearly often around transport infrastructure. Don't forget, we're already doing some work in the city region around infrastructure through the metro, and that may end up being funded through a different way. However, there are links to the metro. There is no reason why a city deal can't add value to what might already be in place. But yeah, I believe, and Kelly, you'll have more technical information on this. You know, city deal money isn't for something which was already going to take place. It has to add additional value. I think this is why we need this investment fund, infrastructure fund, to start doing that technical work on the nature of the projects which suit the region, and all the constituent parts. And it may be that transport is a big part of that. It may be there's some other elements a big part, and I don't know what those are because we haven't had those discussions yet. The city deal leaders, 10 leaders, are meeting monthly now, and we're meeting tomorrow afternoon, and we will be meeting monthly throughout to monitor the progress from elected leader perspective, and officers will be doing something similar to match that, I'm sure. So, Kelly, would you like to add a bit on that, please?
Thank you, Leader. I think it's a really relevant question, and it's probably one that I've asked myself over the last couple of weeks, really. But just to make it absolutely clear that City Deal is only one contributor to the wider work around the Cardiff capital region. It isn't the whole piece of work. It's one important but one singular contributor. I think just in terms of the question around timescale, I think there is a will to accelerate. And I think a conversation was had earlier this week that held some hope that we could really try and get this off the ground by possibly the end of the year. You know, there is some momentum and some impetus behind this. So we need to move very quickly to secure that. But just in terms of the point about transport infrastructure, this isn't and can't just be about transport. Transport's already a major theme of the Cardiff capital region. This is very much about economic growth and prosperity. It's about how we can help people back into employment. How can we make more training opportunities available? You know, how do we grow the economy in a fast and sustainable way? What about housing? Because that's linked very much to transport. Major regeneration projects around town centres, digital has to play a huge part in this as well. But for me, I think we also have to go with the strengths that we have in South East Wales. And that's very much around our culture, our heritage, our natural environment, tourism. So we have to play to those unique selling points as well. So I've been nominated now to sit on the officer board, which will underpin this, which will be helping to do some of the legwork, because we don't want to pay consultants to come in and tell us how everything's going to work, because they don't have the local knowledge that we have. So as officers, we'll certainly be trying to put that on the table and shape a city deal that's right for the regions, but I stress is also right for the localities too.
Thank you, Kelly. You're quite right there. You know, other skills is another important thing that the Westminster will be looking at. We met with the Secretary of State last week with other leaders, you know, and he was pleased of the focus and the unity of councils to take this forward. And we were indeed joined with civil servants from London who have been involved with city deals as well, to give us some input. And the time frame is, as Kelly talks about, you know, we need to make sure we've got that plan we can sign up to before Christmas. We really need to be moving then, because, you know, we need a strong deal. We've got a real opportunity to forge that deal. There'll be other people within the UK who will no doubt want to also bid in the same way, and we need to be there. And we've got everything in place that we can do that now. I'm really pleased that Kelly's going to be sitting on that officer board. She's a massive asset to us, and she will be to the whole region. So well done, Kelly. Okay, I'm going to take us back to the recommendations then. And then they are in 211, that Cabinet agreed that Monmouthshire should become an active partner in progressing a city deal for South East Wales and participate in preparatory work that will lead to the negotiation of a city deal with UK Government, Welsh Government and surrounding authorities. The Cabinet agree a sum of £30,300 to be taken from the Priority Investment Reserve as a contribution to the overall fund of the £500,000 being established by the 10 South East Wales councils to take forward necessary specialist preparation of a detailed proposal over the next 18 months. And that Cabinet agree to this report being presented to full council on the 26th of June to ensure all members are aware of the work and have an opportunity to debate it. And 214 there, that updates are brought back to Cabinet and Council in appropriate time to enable Cabinet to decide whether they wish to remain part of this process. Okay, so those recommendations on block then, all in favour? Yep. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of our special Cabinet meeting today. Can I thank you for your contributions and for attendance, and those of you at home as well. Thank you.